Hi, my name is Josh Fit, and at the Movement Project, we help men and women of all ages to permanently eliminate joint pain, muscle tightness, and recurring injuries so that they can do the things they love without always feeling stiff and sore. I truly believe that what we have to offer and the way in which it is delivered is truly unique, and there's nothing else out there quite like it. We have students in over 15 countries around the world, ranging from complete beginners all the way through to professional athletes, from stay-at-home moms, people who are retired, all the way through to entrepreneurs working 80+ hours a week. We're currently a team of 8 who are based in Australia and the US, and I'm incredibly grateful for all of them because without them this would not be possible. But why am I making this video? We have some massive plans over the next year or two, and I still believe that this is just the start. I've decided to document the journey and figured the best place to start is how we got here. So just to very briefly provide some context, I've always been completely fascinated, obsessed with the idea of building, creating things and just putting it out into the world for it to grow. Started when I was 17 and we would make clothes with my mates, transitioned into music, and then finally transitioned into training. In 2018 I left England to come to Australia for 3-4 months, and long story short, by 2021 my days were spent on Bondi Beach training freelance clients. Now, although this was great, felt like I was living the dream, there were 3 things I didn't like about what I was doing. Value exchange, the impact I could have was limited, and from more of a selfish standpoint, it was quite unreliable at times. So value exchange, this was really important to me, and I felt like a lot of the time when you're doing face-to-face training, you go through like a training block with a client or whatever, the first couple weeks they're getting to learn the movements, they learn all the cues, they learn kind of everything they need to know, and I feel like 3-4 weeks in, you're then kind of just almost standing there guiding them through it, almost babysitting them, counting to 12 for them, whatever. There were several occasions when I just found myself thinking I could be providing way more value than this somehow, and I could also be way more efficient with my time, because I believe that it wasn't efficient for them either, just having me kind of there show them what to do. So that was the first thing. The second thing with being limited with the impact, obviously there's only so many hours in the day when you're doing like 1-hour blocks with clients, and obviously I was also limited by location, right? So there's only so many people I can help. I felt like what I had to offer wasn't out there too much. Not many people were really focusing on this style of training. Kind of just wanted to get it out there to more people. And then with the unreliable side of things, just people cancelling, people rescheduling, things like that. So this is kind of what all planted the seed in my head. And then fast forward, we came to lockdown 2 in Sydney, and I could actually no longer train these people anyway because lockdown was getting pretty serious in Sydney. And also given the situation where a lot of people were losing jobs or didn't have as much money coming in, they couldn't pay for personal coaching anyway. So I basically found myself in this situation where I no longer had income. I had less than $1,500 saved up to my name. Anyone who lives in Bondi knows that's not going to get you too far. I was basically just still a backpack on the other side of the world. It was a pretty unstable situation. Now, although this was obviously pretty stressful, there was also an element of excitement to it because it's kind of like survival mode, right? Like you have no choice but to make something work. And I honestly think that played a huge part in my ability to actually push so hard for so long and build what we've built now. So I sat on my sofa with my coffee, and I basically just remember making the decision that I never wanted anything out of my control to put me in this situation again. So that's when I pretty much decided to go all out with online coaching. Now, there were 2 key concepts that I wanted to focus on that I felt were lacking in the fitness industry. The first was our approach, our philosophy, which we now call movement mastery. Whereas everyone is so focused on aesthetics, I believe that aesthetics should just be a byproduct of a well-functioning, well-moving, strong, resilient body. Okay, I trained weightlifting for many years. I looked strong, but I didn't feel it. I felt like I was always getting injured. I always felt sore, stiff. I believe that everyone should have the freedom to move without any physical limitations in their body, and should have a sustainable practice in place that allows them to do this without having to rely on quick fixes or go and see a physio or things like this. Second thing was self-sustainability. Now, I believe that this was equally important and equally neglected in the fitness industry, to be honest. I believe that everyone should be able to do this into their 70s, 80s, 90s, move freely, and there's no reason why you can't, people can't with proper training. At the same time, it's not realistic for me to work with people for 30, 40, 50 years of their life. So self-sustainability was something that I wanted to focus on, and getting these people to a point where they knew how to continue and apply it to the rest of their life. Obviously, as a personal trainer, when I was doing face-to-face, there's less kind of incentive, I feel, a lot of the time for people to do this. Like, even though like a lot of good coaches will still do it, unless clients keep going back to you, you're not going to get paid, right? So it's kind of like less incentive to do that. So we wanted to switch that round. I knew that by doing this online, I could provide a lot more value 7 days a week than I could have just seen my clients 2 to 3 hours a week at the beach. So I was very confident in my idea, my vision. The hard part, the challenging part was actually going to be getting clients on board. I spent all day, every day, learning about online business and sales, something I never ever thought I would get into. But I realized very quickly that you can be the best at what you do in the world. I'm not saying I am, but you can be the best, whatever you do in the world. If you don't know how to sell yourself, then your knowledge is pretty much going to waste, and ultimately your impact is going to be limited. Now, I saw from social media that the US were in a pretty good living situation in comparison to Sydney. I think a lot of them were actually just working and living pretty normal lives by this point. Basically, just looked like they were in a much better situation to pay for personal coaching. I spend, and this is no exaggeration, 6, 7, 8 hours a day messaging and chatting with people in the US on Instagram, and then the rest of my day learning about building online platforms and things like this. So with the messaging, basically what I would do, you can search like locations in the search bar. I would find a state in in the US that was in a pretty good living situation, I would go on like the recent posts, and then just anyone who remotely looked like they could be like someone I could work with, I'll just drop them a message. Now, a lot of people probably thought I was very weird. At the same time, a lot of people did actually reply. So I'd get chatting to them, get to know them a bit, what they do for their training, chat to them about my training. They could see what I was doing from my Instagram page anyway. And I'd basically just offer any value I could. And then if they seemed like they were interested in what I was doing and everything I had to offer, I basically just offer them to go on a phone call. We could chat a bit more about it and see if I could actually help them. Now, as you can imagine, this was incredibly tedious. My fingers were very numb from texting all the time. I think you could go on Instagram on the computer, but the DMs was like a bit glitchy, so I had to do it on my phone. But I just really wanted to get this out there, and given the fact I had no money, I didn't have much choice. So I basically just rinsed and repeated this, got as many people onto phone calls as I could to tell them about what I did. It's funny, there would literally be times where people would like schedule a time, and it turns out it was like 3 a.m. in Sydney, and I didn't want to tell them just in case they did reschedule. So I'd wake up at 2:45 a.m, splash my face with cold water, get on the phone with some random person on the other side of the world and tell them about my coaching. But I still remember to this day the first client that I got come on board from doing this, and it was an incredible feeling, because I was now confident that my 15-16 hour days weren't going to complete waste. So I was sitting there thinking, right, it took me X amount of time doing X amount of work to get one client. If I just repeat that, I should get another one. Fast forward 5 weeks and I had my first 10 clients, all in the US. I think a couple of them were in Canada. But everyone I worked with absolutely loved the concept. They loved the training. And this absolutely blew my mind to see the level of impact you could actually have without ever meeting the person face to face.
Doing things in my 40s that I never did in my kid years, teens, 20s, 30s, which is truly bizarre. And I think that really throws people.
I don't think I've ever been more mobile. It's a huge difference.
For me, I think one of the best things I've done in my life personally.
And this is when I knew I was onto something, because in my mind, I knew that it could be even better than it already was. 3 months in, and it was already operating at a 6-figure business, which was absolutely mental to me. Everything coming in, I would basically just pour straight back out into whatever mentors I could find around the world to help me refine my systems, my processes, frameworks, and just make the entire thing more professional and user-friendly. Things were growing fast, and admittedly, I was very much out of my depth at one point. I remember there was like a 1-month period where I would wake up every single morning with anxiety, because the second I'd turn my phone off airplane mode, my phone would just absolutely blow up and I just wouldn't know where to start. It started to become too much to do on my own. I had a friend from back home. He helped me reply to some of the messages that were coming in on social media from the people I'd been chatting with, so I could make sure that I was there for the client, the coaching side of things, which was my ultimate priority. It continued to grow, and at around 5 months in, I pretty much couldn't handle any more clients on my own. So I was confronted with the decision of, do I stop here and be content with the fact I hit my goal, or do I get another coach on board and continue to push forward? Now, given the feedback I was getting from the clients, and also given the fact I'm a believer that if you're going to do something, you should go all in, sure enough, I hired my first coach. This was a huge stepping stone. I always had this limiting belief that the clients would only want to talk to me because they came through me. But what I soon realized was that all they actually care about was getting good results and having a good experience. So if I could make sure that they still had both, then we could continue to have more people on board and impact more people. I was very particular with how I did things, especially with things like form feedback, stuff like that. So basically what happened was I would overlook all the coaching, the programming side of things, and then my coach would be there just to respond to any questions day to day that the clients had. Fast forward another 3 months, and then my coach was at full capacity also. I think we had around 90 clients at this point. So I basically had to rinse and repeat that entire process, and that's when I hired my second coach, so I could make sure everyone was still being responded to within 30 minutes to an hour. We were now a team of 4, including my mate that was helping me handle the social media messages, and this is when things really started to feel quite serious. It was without a doubt one of the most challenging things I've ever done, but at this point I was just in so deep that I had no choice but to push forward, and I'm so glad that I did. I can go more into like the challenges we faced, but I'll maybe save that for another video. Fast forward July 2022, and this was a really defining and pivotal moment. Basically made the decision to stop taking on clients altogether and completely start from scratch, this time with Vanya. Now I was very uncertain at first because I was so protective over this thing, like it was like my baby. I'd seen it grow from nothing. At the same time, I just knew that partnering with Vanya would add a whole new dynamic and help take everything to a whole new level, because she's probably one of the best coaches in the world with this type of training. And as the old saying goes, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So that's what we did. Made the jump, completely stopped taking on clients from FearFit. We rebuilt, we rebranded. We now took on women, whereas before I was only actually working with men. At the same time, we hired our first sales rep to handle the amount of applications that we had coming in. We actually call them onboarding reps, because like I said earlier, I hate the term sales. His name is Trevor. He is now going to become the onboarding director of the company. Many of you who have had consultation calls would have had the opportunity to speak to Trevor. He's an awesome guy, and I'm so grateful that we met him when we did. When he first came on board, this was a huge learning curve, probably the biggest one yet, because he was basically going to be there out on the front line representing us and what we do. I had a really hard time letting go of this, and I had this just really limiting belief that no one was going to be able to articulate the solution and what we provide as well as I or Vanya could. Being the ones who actually write the programming, give the coaching, and we know our clients' problems inside out, etc. So this was tough, but it was actually a really valuable obstacle for me to overcome because it taught me that your growth is limited by the amount of trust you are able to put in other people. It forced me to learn the business in a whole new way, and we now actually had to make our processes a lot more structured, whereas before I was kind of just freestyling it and chatting away. So yeah, we simplified all of our language so that we could have the same impact on a slightly bigger scale and push forward. This all happened in June, July. It was a crazy couple of months. To be fully transparent, the progress has not always been linear. There have been a lot of ups, but there have also been many bumps in the road. But the whole thing has just been an absolutely incredible learning experience. For me personally, I think building this and just building a business in general is the best and most authentic form of self-development, because regardless of what mood you're in every single day, you have to take action, because if you don't, no one's going to. And you will build way more mental resilience and mental toughness from doing this than you will from any self-help book, any podcast, any motivational speech on YouTube. To see it pay off and how it's affected so many people in so many different countries around the world just inspires me and continues to inspire me every single day, and holds us accountable to making this service the best it can possibly be. At the beginning of this year, 2023, we hired our second onboarding rep alongside 2 others to help us handle the volume of messages and applications coming in. A focus for me personally this year is just on leadership and just building a high-performing team. We have an amazing group of guys and girls here, and I'm so excited for what this is becoming. We have so many cool plans, and I cannot wait to bring you guys along for the journey. There are 2 main reasons I wanted to create this YouTube channel. The first is just to be fully transparent with what goes on so you can get to know me and the team better, and 2, I hope this channel can serve as a source of inspiration and also education, so that you as a coach in whatever industry can also get your message out to more people and have a greater impact on the world. If you take any value from this whatsoever, it would mean the world to me if you could hit the subscribe button so we can continue to push forward together. Feel free to message me with any videos you want to see, but thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.